The agenda is in chat if you'd like to add anything. First up is Yuval. Hey, Yuval.
Hey. So last week you guys really helped me with the open question regarding how to do the authorization of bucket logging. And now there's another thing, the other thing that was kind of holding back the bucket logging feature is to make sure that I'm not committing a temporary object into the log bucket with open transactions. So this is an issue or a problem that Yehuda identified a while back, and the issue is as following. So in order to make sure that we always get the log in journal node, we write the log before we actually do the operation, the Redis operation or the S3 operation. And this is fine because if we get a false positive, there's no big deal there. The problem is different. The problem is not with false positives. The problem is that we write the log record, but it could be that the operation was not yet done, which means that if somebody reads the list the log bucket and they see the new log object, they read the log object and they read the record saying an object was added, but maybe it's a big object and maybe, I don't know, multi-part upload was configured to upload huge chunks of objects, and it takes a while before the objects actually upload, or it is very slow. Anyways, there could be a case where there's a log record saying an object is there. The object is not there yet, but it's going to be there pretty soon. And what I'm going to do to try to solve this problem is to do some kind of ref counting on this temporary object. So whenever somebody is asking to commit temporary object, the first thing I do is that I create the new temporary object, and all new transaction, all new logs go to the new object. So I don't care about anything new that is happening. My problem is that there could be things that are in the log object, but the operations were not finished. So for that, whenever I'm writing a journal log into the log bucket, I'm using the CLS ref counter to get or to increment the ref count on the temporary object. And in the operation code, after I complete the operation, I decrement or put the ref count on the temporary object. And whenever I'm calling commit for whatever reason, I'm going to retry or loop until I don't have any open transactions on the object. That's the general idea. There's one kind of ugliness there. The ref counter is deleting the object when the ref count goes to 0. And this is not my intent at all. The object should not be deleted. So what I plan on doing is that upon creation of the object, I'm going to get a hold of the object or increment the ref count with not with the transaction, but with some tag that is never going to be put, is never going to be decremented. So the ref count of the object will never reach 0. And I will just use the transaction ref counts that are actually going to go up and down as an indication that all the transactions that use this log object to put records in it are concluded, and I can safely put that into the bucket index, and whoever wants to consume that object can consume it. So that's the overall idea.
Quick question.
Sure.
Who does the commits?
So commits can come from two places. One place where the commit can come is from a Redis Gateway admin command, or actually from 3 places. Could be a Redis Gateway admin command, just asking to commit the temporary object into a bucket. The second place could be a REST API command doing the same thing. I don't see an issue there. The third place could be based on some kind of could be based on some kind of time based. So I don't want the object to be too big, or the log to be too big, or to describe, to be like have logs for too long of a time. So you can configure them to automatically commit, let's say every 5 minutes or something like that. So that can happen, and this would happen actually when somebody is trying to log a record. So I'm going to try and log a record. I would see, oh, well, this object this object should have been committed because the time have passed for this object. So I'm going to log a record to the new object. So this doesn't matter, but I'm also going to commit the old object. In this case, I will have to somehow do that asynchronously because, I mean, this is just a regular operation that should return very quickly. So if I have a retry mechanism that waits for transactions to complete, then I don't want this to be blocked. So I'll have to somehow. Sorry.
Okay, good. Yeah. Front-end requests should not block waiting for assuming that the commit would have to poll until refs go to 0.
Right. Now, I do want to also add some kind of a timeout because let's say that there was one of the RGWs that wrote the log record and then tried to do the operation but crashed. So the completion for this one is never going to happen. And I'm going to kind of take my chance in the sense that there has to be a timeout, that after this timeout, I'm going to give up and commit anyways, because I don't want to lose all these records forever just because one of the records could be incorrect. So there could be a case where I'm going to, after a while, I'm going to give up. And even if I do have open transactions, I'm going to commit the temporary log object into the log bucket so people can access it. And it could be pretty rare, but it could be a case that this would cause a real issue. But if with a long enough timeout, this is very unlikely.
Consequence would just be that the bucket log would contain ops that didn't actually complete.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if, I mean, it can happen. So let's say, well, but I don't want, on the other hand, to never commit this this log object. It will have a worse effect if I'm never going to commit the log object. So for operations that were completed, right? Just because, let's say, one of the RGWs crashed and the operations there will never complete.
Understood.
So that's the idea. One thing that I was somewhat worried about is because of the kind of the hack that I did to prevent the deletion at the end. I thought it might conflict with object copying operations, but I think it should be safe because when we do copy, we do ref counting on the tail object, while all my ref counting on the head object. So I think we're safe here, but that's the only place that I kind of was a bit concerned about that.
Right. Copies and deletes would only ref or deref the tails. So you're putting all of the object data in the head for these log
Yes,
objects? Okay.
yes. I mean, I'm creating pretty. I mean, I'm allowing pretty large objects, and I'm putting everything in the head. I'm not sure what is the downside here, but this is how the code currently works.
Okay. And for the timeouts on commit, we wouldn't need like each ref to have a timestamp or something. It would just be, I've been waiting to commit for X seconds and I'm giving up now and committing anyway.
Yes, I think so.
And
Yeah, I don't.
what if the committing process crashes?
Well, okay, so if the commit is actually a REST action or Redis Gateway admin action, then I mean there'll be an error. So whoever is have called the commit would probably have to just try again. Although there could be an issue here because if they do a commit again, they're going to commit the new object and not the one that they failed to commit. So this could be a problem. I'll probably have to store somewhere objects that um, objects that are not the current object but are not committed yet. That would have to
Okay.
be probably stored somewhere. Otherwise, calling commit again would just commit the newly created object. And I guess same goes for time-based ones, because if the RGW crashed, then a new RGW or anything else that will look at it at the time of the new object and would say, "Oh, I still have time. I don't need to commit anything." So I probably need to add a mechanism that remembers objects that are temporary objects that are not current but still need to be committed into the bucket. This might have even happened now, even without the open transactions. In theory, I mean, because I first create the new one, redirect everybody to the new one, and then I'm committing. So in between, an RGW can crash, and it will have the same effect. Although this is kind of somewhat unlikely. If we're waiting for open transactions, this is becoming more likely.
So remind me, was it that each bucket has some special object that says what the current
Yes.
head is?
Yes.
Maybe
yeah.
maybe that object also needs to track the uncommitted ones too, and you could
Yes.
kind of do transactions to update that as you commit or prepare a new one.
Yes, probably that would be the solution. So I have like a system object holding the name of the current temporary object, and I would also need to hold a list of uncommitted objects.
Okay, that doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah. Okay. That's everything I had to bring. Thank you so much for the feedback.
Yeah, interesting use of CLS ref count.
Yeah, a bit of a hack, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, if the only alternative is to write a separate CLS module specifically for that, then better to
Yeah,
reuse what's there.
and it's exactly the same. Like I use the transaction ID as the tag, and it's pretty much exactly the same except of the deletion at the end.
Is there a way within that mechanism to request like a different action than deletion rather than replacing the mechanism?
So the thing is that the ref count, it behaves like a smart pointer. You don't actually increment and decrement or ask for actions. You like get a pointer and put a pointer. And under the hood, it does like a smart pointer ref counting and deletions. So um, I mean, you can add a flag there to not do the deletion, but it be like the current API is very much like a smart pointer.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on the history, but I believe that this was invented just for RGW's garbage collection, where we do want the object to go away on last ref.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Yuval. Anything else on this? All right, next up, Kernal.
Hello, everyone. I um, I don't. I mean, probably I could share a screen, or I could just talk about it. So I wanted to talk about this PR, where I'm trying to leverage the option reuse port. Like while we set up our connection socket connection in our front end, basically is async IO front end today. We do not use reuse port that as a config that can be set on the socket. What that means is when you set that option is you can allow multiple RGWs to run on the same port. So basically what will happen is today if we try to run another instance of RGW on port 8080 or 80, by default the kernel says the port is already in use. But if we set up the socket by specifying the config reuse port, it allows you to spin multiple instant or multiple processes on the same port. The idea here for us being was we are trying to explore options where basically if we want to increment the number of RGW processes in the background without being, so we use the Ansible way. We do not use the Ceph ADM, so we have the actual processes running. So the idea being able to runtime increment or decrement the number of RGW processes depending on load that we have, versus going the Ansible way and then updating the ceph.conf and then spinning up a new systemd, or writing a new systemd and then spinning up. So this basically helps us, or at least solves this problem tremendously. This particular feature is only available in kernel 3.9 and above, but basically looking at what our distros are, all of our kernels should be about 3.9. So this param should be available for most of the kernels, or at least what Ceph, like all the distros that Ceph supports today. So I just wanted opinion or view of people, and should this be behind a config flag, and if have people explored this option before?
I hadn't heard of it myself. Anybody else? That sounds fine to me.
Yep. So should it be behind, do you think should be behind a config flag, or should it be default? So basically if you add this option by default today, there could be other processes, if they try to spin up on the same port, they would be able to spin it up. So I don't know, how do we want to go about it? Or do we want to go it by default, allowing processes to run, like multiple processes to run on the same port today? So that was the thing, and there would be follow-up PRs as well. But at least to start with, I wanted to give this a try and see what people have. Do people have any opinions on this?
I mean, if we're confident that the distro will be recent enough to support it, then I see no reason to make it configurable.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, that helps. I'll double check on all the distros again. I have done at least on the CentOS and the Red Hat ones. I'll try to look up the other distros as well, for that matter. And then, yep, shortly have the PR. And then, thanks. Do let me know if people have any opinions on this.
Okay, a request from Joseph to document this in the PR, and I guess a code comment would help too.
Yep, sure.
Thanks, Kunal. Up next, Jesse. Is this the JSON one?
Yeah, same PR. Just again asking if anyone has spare cycles and feels like a relaxing read. They can have a peek at that, and I would appreciate it.
What is the status of testing? Is it working for RGW stuff?
It is. Well, it's I just asked Jenkins to retest it, and it's just taking forever. And the same with Shaman and any of the other testing in Sepia. It's just seems like it's not going at all, and it's taking days.
Yes. I see your last Toothology run looks pretty good. Couple failures there.
Yeah, there are a couple things failing, and again, that those are areas where I would definitely love a more experienced opinion on whether or not those are kind of normal or something I did, or a nudge in a direction I should look if there are things I've broken. That would be definitely appreciated, because it's definitely almost working or totally working, and I'd like to know which of those is the case.
Yeah. I will go through the failures and post what I learn about them in the PR.
Sure, be appreciated. Thank you.
All right. And Sina, you're still here, right? We were discussing this PR that changed some encodings. I wasn't quite sure what you were getting at with the require OSD release thing.
Yeah, right. So I was thinking about if we try to assume that this encoding, for example, the 8 encoding, the 8 version 8 would only released on T version, then we could have said that if the required OSD release on the OSD map has set to be T release, then we can assume that, okay, all OSDs are running to support the V8, so we can start encoding and decoding, and not basically stop encoding those fields, and just because they are all on version 8, then they know that they should not decode that. So actually that could help us to stop decoding fields rather than just leave them empty.
I don't think we've ever tried to do that before. It seems like that would add a lot of extra dependencies to the encode and decode logic. And I mean, we have like unit tests that run this stuff and verify that we haven't broken encodings that don't necessarily have a OSD map or a Rados client. I mean, how much does it really save to avoid encode and decode of empty values there.
I guess at this point it's negligible, but yeah, I mean, I also couldn't find any use case where other parts like maybe RVD, OSD anywhere could have used such a hack. So I guess yeah, this is completely new.
Yeah. So I mean, there is functionality in the, what's the macro called, encode start, where you bumped the encoding version. You could bump the compat version next to it if we're breaking the encoding, but then the old decoders would still fail to decode. So that wouldn't really help in this case. To me, it looks like this would just encode 3 integers. Assuming that zone's trace is empty, it would just encode the size of 0. And so encode and decode of 3 integers, I don't think is worth working around the issue.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was mostly out of curiosity for myself, just wanted to know what's the procedure to drop fields in the middle of any situation like that. But yeah, I agree. It doesn't work. It definitely. What I see now, how it could affect things.
Yeah, it is hard to remove fields from encodings. Generally, we just add things to the end, and that lets us keep backward compatibility for a long time. So for this PR, would you be okay with just leaving the struct itself unchanged and just not fill in those values anymore?
Yeah, I will change the PR to just remove the arguments from the functions at least, and then just leave the encoding as they are with the empty values. So that should do the work. Yeah, just would be a cheap cleanup then. Yeah.
All right, sounds great. Okay, we have reached the end of the agenda. Any more topics that anyone would like to raise? I guess I can share an update from the Ceph steering committee meetings recently. We're kind of debating the timing of the tentacle release. Recently, it sounds like we're leaning towards a freeze in the next month or two for that. So if you have features that you really want to make T that aren't ready yet, raise that with Adam or Eric. Anything else for today? All right. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you.